Welcome, everybody. And to not waste any of your time, because part of good habits is not wasting time or being late for other agendas. So we are going to start because I believe we have enough people to start. We
Right.
have others that haven't fulfilled their bad habits. They're going to join in later, and we hope that after this they'll become more punctual. But Richard, you may start. The
Great.
floor is all yours.
Thank you, guys. It's so nice to be back with you again. I think this is my fourth or fifth talk with IQ Academy, and it's always a pleasure to be around people who are wanting to learn and grow themselves. And in the process, I get so much also. So I'm forever continuously a learner, and I think that's the main thing in life. If we can develop a habit, it is to make sure that we are forever learning. So this talk was particularly, well, it hits home a lot for me. I think a lot of you who have joined other talks that I have given in the past know my history with addiction. And so this talk was pretty personal. And I was stuck in what was mentioned in the advert as the loop for many years. And I still do find myself stuck in that loop in various other things that I am trying to understand before I overcome them. And that is the crux of this talk, is that we are all dying to break certain habits in our lives. But in order to break a habit, we've got to make sure that we are understanding what it is that we are looking at, because we often try with willpower to defeat something that we think is our habit, but we don't have any idea what causes the habit. And that is the crux of this talk, is to understand what causes a habit and how to go around uh, putting efforts in, willpower, to actually address the main issue. So I'm going to start off with this picture over here. It's a favorite picture of mine that I use with all my students. And the sewing machine on the right-hand side represents what we call a system. And it is a closed system. As you will see, every single thing on that sewing machine, from the bobbin winder to the foot pedal to the needle to whatever it might be, all forms part of this system. Now, everything that we basically see is a system. This phone is a system. If I opened the phone and took something out, the system would break. And systems have causal relationships with the parts that are inside them, meaning that if I remove the pedal from the sewing machine, a part of it, the sewing machine is not going to run. If I remove the bobbin from the sewing machine might run, but it's not going to run at the optimal way. And so the system is broken. Human beings are systems. We are systems. We are closed systems, meaning that inside of us, we all have the same parts. We have a liver, a heart, a kidney. We have lungs. We have things that make our systems go. We have a nervous system, and we have a system called a brain that constantly helps us try and find solutions or make sense of this world. So our systems are far more complex than we think that they are. We are not just made up of the thoughts and the emotions that come with those thoughts. And we often do think, okay, like what else is there aside of my body? And this was the big thing for me, is I always referred to my body as part of my system who just carried me around. But the body is the most important part of the system. It is the structure of the system that contains the nervous system. And each of these systems, our minds, our bodies, our emotions, are all run together. Mind, emotion, and the nervous system run together as the system that makes us who we are. And so, for example, if our system is not working at optimal quality, if, for example, you don't sleep properly, the causal relationship is, well, you haven't slept properly, and so your body is tired. That's the cause, and that's the effect. When your body is tired, your mind is dysregulated. You can't think straight. You're sitting at work or school or wherever you might be. You're yawning. You can't concentrate. all you're thinking about is going home. You're thinking on anything but what you need to be doing. And when your mind is not regulated, your impulses are stronger. So, for example, if you are tired, if you haven't had enough sleep over the last few days, and your system is tired, your body is tired, your mind is tired, and emotionally you're not feeling great, what do? Well, I certainly have no inspiration to come home and cook myself a great meal. I immediately pick up the phone and iPhone, Uber Eats, and I get whatever's easier. Or my system is tired, it needs energy, so it looks for chocolates. Or in my case, my system is tired, I need to operate drugs. That gets my system up, cocaine. And so that's how I lived my life. I went and I lived every single day on cocaine for 17 years. And when I say using cocaine, I'm talking about 6-7 grams of cocaine every day. So I had very ingrained habits. My system was overloaded and stressed out. And when you have a stressed out system, it looks for something immediately around it to help it carry on. Because our systems are operating on functions of I need to survive, very primal instincts. And so my system got used to an easy answer is you're tired, you're not focused, cocaine will help you focus. And even though that wasn't the right solution, it's a solution that worked for me. And so there was a system interruption. And in life, we all face personal challenges. We all face situations which will disrupt the smooth flowing of our systems. And this can range over anything we have experienced from childhood trauma to teenage social trauma to issues that we have at work, to issues that you have with your kids, your friends, or whatever it might be. You cannot escape stress. It's all around us. However, when your system, when your body, your mind, your emotions, and your nervous system is overwhelmed, it becomes disrupted. It does not flow like it should flow. You are not sleeping properly. You're not eating properly. You're not resting properly. You're not exercising properly. Your system is stressed out. What it does, because it is programmed to keep you safe, it looks for relief. And it does not look for wisdom. So in my case, my system didn't at all think to myself, okay, well, cocaine used every day is not a healthy way to run your life. My system said, you are this, I need relief, that provides the relief. That's what I did. So it will look for relief, it will not look for wisdom. And it's in this cycle where habits begin to form. Whether those habits take on anything. For example, your habit might be, I'm tired, and therefore the best, easiest thing for me is to get takeaway food, and you live on junk food. I'm tired, I'm stressed out from work, and so what will happen is it's easier for me to not go and exercise because I need to rest. It makes sense. And so we get into this habit of wishing we could go to gym. We get gym subscriptions. I'm sure many of you, like I am, are guilty of this. Get gym subscriptions and have all this willpower in our mind. We're definitely going to go to gym. We don't have the energy. And so we continually live in this loop of trying to find solutions. Habits are quick fixes. So these things that we learn to use in our lives to help us survive, to give us energy, to make us feel better, are very quick solutions. They are learnt patterns of behavior. And the more that you repeat a pattern, the stronger the pattern becomes, because neurologically, you form neural pathways that get stronger and stronger and stronger each time a pattern continues to be put in your mind. That's why you find that they say drugs are very addictive, because what do drugs do? Drugs are quick. They provide you with an immediate solution. They work in the moment, But unfortunately, you use them over and over again, and your mind and your body is going to say, well, I do not know any other way to cope. And so I'm going to start craving the drug because it makes me feel better. But as with all habits, they work for a while until they don't work anymore. Until the way that we used to handle stress, we're not handling it as well as we used to. Until we are eating junk food and we get sick because we're not eating healthy. If we suffer with anxiety, we find that our stress goes overboard. We look for relief in alcohol, food, whatever it might be. Eventually, your system is going to come to a stage where it's going to say, sorry, I can't do this anymore. And the common challenges we seem to face as human beings in this world is anxiety. And so a very common way to deal with it, a quick fix, is let's overwork to make sure that we are never behind. And so we work and we work and we work and we work, and our body goes into overdrive. And when our body's in overdrive, our nervous system is triggered and it looks for relief. And so we look for praise from people. Am I doing the right thing? Is this right? Am I better than everybody else? And we completely put ourselves onto a road to nowhere. Boredom. We are not very good with dealing with boredom in these days. And gaming, for example, is a way that a person uses a tool to overcome a challenge that they're experiencing. I'm not saying gaming is wrong. I don't care if you game. I think it's great. But I would like to say to you or tell you that the highest rates of rehab addictions in this world in terms of being built and being established are addiction facilities specifically for gaming. So gaming is becoming a problem. Gaming isolates you. It's a way of escape. It's a way of escaping our world. People with anxiety, great way to game. You don't have to go out. People battle with identity. And so what happens is, what do we do when we battle with identity? We isolate. We go inwards. Because when we go inwards, our system doesn't have to deal with something it perceives as a threat. When we're bored and we think, what am I going to do with my life? And I've got nothing to do. There's the threat to the system. Well, I can game. That's going to occupy my time. The system calms down. Highly anxious at work. But let me overwork myself almost to death because that will calm my system down. Or the end of the night, I need to calm my system down. And listen to those words. I need to calm my system down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drink a bottle of wine because that calms my system down. It will calm me down. It doesn't calm you down. It calms an overloaded nervous system down because you are not listening to your body. And so what we do with all these fixes is we are actually putting a plaster over a gaping, bleeding wound. These quick fixes offer very immediate solutions, but they are short-term. Because just like with the sewing machine, remember, remove something from the sewing machine. It might work a little bit, but eventually it's going to collapse. Or it might not work at all, depending on what part you move. So quick fixes like to the anxiety, to the gaming, the isolation, the alcohol, the addiction, whatever it might be, they are very successful in removing discomfort because remember what a habit does. A habit is there to remove something in the moment. A habit is your system saying, I am uncomfortable. Fix me. And you're saying, okay, this fixes you immediately. Let's do that. And so you do it over and over and over again. And that habit is there. And your habit becomes something that you don't even have to think about. I didn't get up in the morning and think to myself, oh, it's a new day. Maybe I shouldn't use cocaine. No, I thought to myself, it's a new day. I can't survive without cocaine. And so these habits become part of our lives. They become automatic system responses, and they reward us because they make us feel better. And again, they are solving a problem right there in the moment, and we do not have to think about it. They are short-term, they are immediate, and they are what we call autonomic, which is the things that we don't think of, not in our conscious minds. However, they do not address the real cause. They do not address what is interrupting the system in the first place. They do not address what is causing this disruption. They're giving you a solution to the disruption, absolutely, and they're doing that effectively, but they are not looking at the root problem. And our brains, which are developed specifically to solve problems, do not think to us, this is not right. The brain thinks, I have found a solution to a problem. Thank you. End of story. And when that trigger comes up again, boredom, anxiety, overworked, the brain says, oh, I already know a solution. Don't worry. Triggers it back, triggers it back, triggers it back. And you're back in the cycle. Cycling. Can't get off the couch. Can't break away from fast food. Have no motivation to cook. Can't do this because you don't need any other way. Your brain's already said to you, I know the solution. Remember also that your nervous system doesn't know what's right or what's wrong. It doesn't care. All it cares about is that it's not uncomfortable. That's how it works. And so when even over here, when it says over here, our brains, which are designed to solve problems, register that the habit, the action, has successfully solved the problem, even temporarily. And therefore, when the system experiences the same or a similar problem or an uncomfortable issue, the quick fix behavior automatically triggers itself. But I want to show you, I have broken it down in terms of how this habit loop forms and how willpower, although with the greatest of intentions, is no match for a habit. Stage 1, something feels uncomfortable in the system, stress, anxiety. Stage 2, the habit, a quick fix is formed, alcohol, people pleasing, procrastination, overworking, gaming. Stage 3, we have a real desire to change. We've been doing this for a long time, and the habit stops working eventually. Eventually, your system is like, I can't do this anymore. I can't eat all this junk food anymore. Either I'm putting on weight or I'm feeling unhealthy, or I can't sit here my whole life and game. When last did I go out with my friends? When last did I go outside? When last did I go on a date? Has my partner been shouting at me, get off the flippin' game console? Or I say to myself, I can't use cocaine for the rest of my life. I'm killing myself. The desire is real. And willpower comes in after that. So over time, we begin to recognize that our quick fix short-term solutions, the habits, are negatively impacting the health of our system, our lives, our mental health. People-pleasing and alcohol dependency takes its toll on our life, stage 1 and 2. We start to desire real change, stage 3. And so we attempt to change our behavior in stage 2. Willpower is what comes from the desire. I have a desire to change, and so I need to put in effort to change it. So it makes sense. You cannot have willpower if you don't have a desire to change. There's an extra step there. But what is the problem in this? Because from what I can see, basic calculations, we are trying to use willpower at stage 4 to solve stage 2. I'm going to stop drinking alcohol. I'm going to stop gaming. I'm going to stop using drugs. I'm going to stop people pleasing. I am going to leave work at 5 o'clock and I'm not going to work at home. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm not going to game. All beautiful, beautiful intentions. And we truly do want them. But we are using willpower to fight or trying to fix the gaping, bleeding wound by putting a plaster over it and wondering why our behaviors never change. Even I'm dying to fix this. I really want to get fit. I really want to get healthy. Trust me, I spent 17 years using willpower to try and overcome my addiction. I went to 5 rehabs. I tried to kill myself, literally. But I was fighting the issue. I never even considered that my system was overloaded. What was causing the addiction? Issues with identity, issues with stress, issues with feeling I wasn't worthy. And so when we are looking to challenge and break our habits, it's not that willpower doesn't work. It does work. It's powerful. But you don't know who you are fighting. You are on a battlefield and you are facing the wrong enemy. So let's look at how we possibly could do this. So we know that willpower doesn't fail. It's just getting assigned to the wrong battlefield, because there's 4 of them right there. So while it may feel that it fails us over and over again, we start to feel, oh my gosh, nothing is going to work. This is a habit. I'm stuck. This is basically an addiction. I am now addicted to overworking. I'm addicted to fast food. I'm addicted to not exercising. I don't care. Meanwhile, inside you care deeply. It's not because willpower is useless, but just because it is misdirected. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we are not seeing? We're in the right place because we know what the habit is. We know it's not helping us out, and awareness is the greatest tool. We know that we have a desire to stop it. We know that we have willpower. We want to put in the effort. But let's discover who it is we need to fight. And so we look back at stage 1. That is the enemy. Acknowledge the discomfort. You cannot know who you are fighting without knowing their face. So whatever it is that you are trying to fight, you need to name it. You need to understand it. Stress does not mean it needs anxiety, etc., overworking. What you need is you need boundaries. You've named the system. You've acknowledged the discomfort. Now you say, what is it that the issue is? If you're battling with anxiety, it doesn't need numbing with alcohol or drugs. If you're battling with identity and confused with who you are and where you're going and you are fearful, the drugs are not going to give you an answer. Isolating is not going to give you an answer. Overeating is not going to give you an answer. All it's going to do is make the problem bigger. What you need is truth, honest conversations. So a lot of people think, I am going to just remove everything. Wonderful, makes sense. Remove the alcohol, problem solved. But as I said earlier on, your life is full of triggers. Something is going to happen that is going to trigger your stress response, and your stress response is going to say to you, I need to get out of this feeling, this discomfort of stress. What is the quickest thing I know? Alcohol. Quickest thing I know, drugs. My body is exhausted. It is discomfort. I need a quick fix solution. What is it? Fast food, chocolate, whatever it is, eating to make me feel better. But the result is never better. So with alcohol, substance never provided a solution. So become willing to rather learn about what your discomfort is. You know very well what your habits are. What is producing them? People pleasing. With each small and potentially uncomfortable no, you are building tolerance. Just like you built a tolerance with every time you decided you were going to reach for the fast food or the gaming console to escape the anxiety, the boredom, etc., you have to start stacking. Stacking is repeated behavior, building good habits, acknowledging that while you're doing it, you're building a house with cement that can stand forever in the long term, not the short term. Your habits will keep you a prisoner. And this is the crazy thing about being stuck in a habit. It's like me placing you in a jail cell. You're in that jail cell for 20 years, crying, screaming to get out. And only afterwards you realize that the jail cell door was never locked. You just never tried opening it. You've become trapped by your own behavior. You've never probably asked, why am I in jail? Sorry, misunderstanding. The door's open, guys. We never arrested you. We put you somewhere safe. Nobody said you were under arrest. You've done that to yourself. Willpower is there to help you begin building that system. System approaches the way that you look after yourself, consciously understand and acknowledge that the habit is not the problem. It is a temporary solution to a problem. When you start addressing the problem, you start building solutions. You start building architecture. You start building houses that are going to sustain you in storms. So when triggers and anxiety comes, you go into that house because it is solid now and you realize, okay, I see this. Anxiety, my typical system response is go get the alcohol, go get the drugs, go game, etc. It's wrong. It's not because I can't live without them. It's because I've learned that they've worked till now. Now I have to learn new ways to learn, new ways to cope. And so it's about understanding what the original discomfort is here, not what it is the habit is producing. The habit is your short-term solution. Stage one, your discomfort causes the habit. You cannot defeat a habit with willpower. They call it white knuckling. I've seen this so many times in clients in AA, NA, etc. They use willpower to fight their addiction. They call it white knuckling because the people are gripping so hard onto something that they think will help them that their knuckles turn white because they're gripping so far. That is not how you live life. All that does is de-stress the system even more. Look at what is causing the discomfort. That is the problem. That is who you need to be speaking to. That is who you need to be having honest conversations with and finding healthier ways. So again, for me, there was a misalignment. And a misalignment is when we start fighting behavior instead of understanding what the pain is about. In my own life, I didn't lack the desire to change. I told you, I did everything I could. 5 rehabs, 17 years of trying. Wasn't that I wasn't wanting to try or there wasn't a real big desire to change. I just did not know there was an alternative. I didn't look at what the root of the pain was. The root of the pain was that Richard was not secure in his identity. Richard only felt seen if Richard was told that this is what you're doing is right. I could not have an independent thought. And so anytime I was in a situation where I had to make a decision, my anxiety just shot through the roof and my body said to me, okay, cool. How do we get you out of this? Well, cocaine works, always worked, never failed you. Go get it. And so I did every day until my system collapsed. And do not think for a second, guys. Do not think for a second that stress is not as bad as cocaine. Stress is the #1 killer in the world. Stress is more lethal than you could ever begin to imagine. And stress lives on areas that are common to every single one of you. Common at work, home, things that you're not willing to let go in your life, not willing to have conversations with, current existing habits, fear of the future, fear of what people have thought of you, grief of the past, guilt, shame. These are all stresses. And we all have ways of coping. Let me be more than I am. Because if I'm more than I am, people are going to like me better. That's a habit. It's an addiction. 10 years in that, you're going to sit back and you're going to say, who the hell am I? That is. I had no idea. Let's start rebuilding. Drugs were solving a problem for me, yes, in the moment. But I didn't know what they were solving. I didn't know they were solving something that was inside me. They were a solution. They were not the problem. And with willpower, when you find what the problem is, willpower finds strength. You see that alignment. I'm not fighting against an insurmountable mountain like an addiction. Insurmountable mountain like anxiety, insurmountable stuff that I can't control. You're fighting yourself. You're in the jail cell. Open the door. And so the goal was not ever to remove the drugs, which I tried to do over and over again. The goal was to build a life in which I didn't need them to cope. However, it is important to acknowledge, and I think this is why a lot of people struggle, is because rebuilding takes time. And we live in a world where we are so used to instant gratification. Just take the pain away now, quickly. I'll deal with it tomorrow. Yeah, works. You deal with it tomorrow. Before you know it, your tomorrow's become 17 years. After 17 years, it's become a life. And when you can't find another tomorrow, I hate to tell you things that I did to try and find more solutions. And again, drug addiction, using drugs, using alcohol, it's exactly the same as gaming, people pleasing, living in guilt, regrets, shame, whatever it might be, anxiety. All of the things are the same. They are ways that our system are trying to cope. The problem is we listen to our minds. We forget that we have a body. We forget the basic principles. Habits is there to give you immediate relief, but there is no quick fixes in this life. If you want to build a system that's going to give you freedom, if you want to get out of that jail, it is a long-term thing. Stop building with, clay. Start building with bricks. Be in the hot sun. Feel the sweat as you build and rebuild by addressing the main problem. Don't address the solution that your body has told you is the problem. And it's a journey. And I wish I could say to you, to everyone here, that is your problem. That's what you need to do. But as I said to you in the very beginning, I'm learning too. Do not think for a second that I'm sitting here all pretty and all good and everything, because trust me, when stress comes, I'm just like, you know what would be great right now? And I'm like, yeah, what happens afterwards? What happens after that quick fix, Richard? Well, let's play that again. So normally what happens is you have a stress work, you get the cocaine, great, you feel amazing for the day, you do great work. You end up at a bar at the end of the night until 4 a.m. You go home with somebody you've never met. For the next week, you hate yourself. And so because you hate yourself, you need another fix because you're discomfort. So you pick up the cocaine again to get rid of the hate myself. And it removes the hate myself for 2 days. And then you hate yourself again, and you go and you go and you go and you go, and your habit becomes your life. And we sit back and we're like, oh, I'm chronically depressed. I can't do this. Life is so hard. Yeah, you can't do this, but you're doing it. Don't have the strength. I don't have the willpower. You absolutely do. You have more strength than you realize. You're just fighting the wrong battle. Here's your addiction. Your battle's over here. Look up. Stop looking down. And that is the end of my talk.
Thank you so much, Richard.
No problem.
It's wow. For me, it sums up, or rather, I would sum it up as not all solutions are equal. And I really like what someone mentioned in the chat, which is that the jail door is open, and it's something that we need to realize. And I would also like to extend an apology for the real-time talk chats that may have distracted everyone. but I will have to just reiterate that this session is recorded and will be on our YouTube page. We are also going to be sending this recording to you in a post-webinar email. And in it is our post-webinar survey. Please fill it in. We always like to improve just so that you can have a better experience. But I will now open the floor for questions in the chats. And that's the meeting chats, not the RTT chats. And I'll also switch on everyone's mic. Can you please raise your hand before asking your question? And also remember, since this is going on YouTube, which is a public platform, it means your neighbor may find this session and will find out all your secrets. So please anonymize your question. But at least for now, while we give people time to answer or ask questions, Richard, what are your views, or would you like to add on to the statement mentioned in the chat about the jail door is open?
I do believe it was me that mentioned that. So I said being trapped in a habit is like being in a jail for 20 years, but not realizing that the door is open. And you haven't been sentenced, you've sentenced yourself. So the jail door is always open. It's just that we see our environment and our problems as so insurmountable that we don't think we can overcome them. And so if we ask questions to the jailer, what have I done? When do I get out? He's going to be like, you're not locked here. You can get out. You just need to refocus and realign.
Would you then say that it's linked to maybe changing the environment and making that comfortable zone uncomfortable till we realize that it's no longer serving us?
Great question. The thing with that is you don't actually have to do anything, because there's going to come a time where it becomes so uncomfortable that you can't ignore it. So I think with a habit, unless there is that acknowledgement and a desire to change, there's not going to be the willpower or the energy to put into that desire. So there's going to be, we all have habits in our lives. And learning how to deal with habits is learning how to have conversations with yourself. So you've got to actually, like that sewing machine, ask yourself what is issues in your system. And for example, you don't want to purposely disrupt a system if it's working fine. But I do not know a single person, I've yet to meet a single person who has a system that runs fine. So I don't think you'd have to disrupt it. I think you would already know.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. And we have a question in the chats. They're not sure if this relates, but they're asking if getting angry because of anxiety and stress is also a habit. Absolutely. If so, how does one fix it?
Well, what does anger do? Anger is an expression of an overloaded nervous system, an overloaded system that expresses anger to get rid of energy. And so anger can become a coping mechanism. It becomes a habit, because what it does is anger, if it's expressed, intimidates whoever it is, either quietens them down, and therefore it solves your problem in the immediate. It also stops you from having to think about what you're angry about and finding alternate ways. It's easier to scream and shout and go crazy instead of sitting down, having conversations and saying to yourself, okay, why am I angry? What is it that's triggering me that's making me angry? Because, we all live in this world. And if one person says, I'm the only person in this world that gets angry because everybody in the world for some reason pisses me off only, I'm like, no, we all get pissed off. But we all have learned to deal with it in different ways. Like the person might get anger, another person might go into themselves and remove and isolate themselves. Those are all coping mechanisms, immediate coping mechanisms.
Thanks for sharing.
Cool.
There is Ntombi who's asking, how do you identify if you're falling into a bad habit? Are there any signs that are common to us all?
Yeah, I think one of the signs is that you can't help but be convicted by it. You can feel it in you. You can feel this is not right. You're seeing the pattern over and over again, and you're realizing that you're doing it over and over again. And often habits become secrets within ourselves that we keep to ourselves. We protect them, we defend them. Our system defends them because it's a quick fix solution. And so we've got to ask ourselves, what is it that we are trying to keep to ourselves? What is the secret? Why? And why? Why can't we? I mean, like, honestly, although at the end of my using days, I didn't feel anything. I'd rack up a line of cocaine on my phone and use it in shopping line at Woolworths. But what we often do is when people use drugs or alcohol and they're using excessively, they're not going to be standing or phoning their parents, hey, let's go out, and standing there with like 5 bottles of wine and drinking it, or screaming at somebody else's child, or having a nervous breakdown. They do it in secrecy because they know that something is wrong. I think that everybody intrinsically knows what areas to deal with and what are evolving.
Wow. So therefore, we need to just make sure we're aware of what we are ashamed of.
Not ashamed. It's not ashamed. I don't believe you should be ashamed of your habits. I believe that your habits there are to inform you that your system is needing help. I think the difference is we've got to change our listening. Shame and guilt is a language. Habitual actions that are hurting us is a language of saying not good enough, can't do, overworked, overstressed. What is that language saying to you? Listen. Listen to yourself. Observe yourself for a period of a week or two. Listen to what your mind tells you. There's a reason it's telling you it. It's asking for a solution, but it's definitely not wanting the one that your mind has come up with as an immediate fix. And that requires you to become a little bit more self-aware and self-compassionate. And self-compassion is something we all deal with. It sounds great in textbooks, but when it comes to ourselves, we're like, what do you mean be self-compassionate? And I must go cry in a bedroom and then come out and I'm better? No, self-compassion is, I'm hurting myself. I don't want to anymore. That is the drive. Okay, what can I put in to start helping myself? That's the willpower.
And you're touching on a question that comes from the chats, and it's linked to how can you balance giving yourself grace and being hard on yourself when you fall into old habits?
What a beautiful word, grace. Well, I'm going to just take a leap here, and I'm gonna use grace in the context that it was first given. And grace is a biblical term, and a lot of people think of grace as undeserved forgiveness, and it's not that at all. Grace is an action word. Grace is there whether you want it to be there or not, whether your action was deserving or undeserving. Grace doesn't change. Grace is all around us. And God is God, and God doesn't change, and God gives grace. So we've got to realize that we are not being judged. Grace doesn't elude us. We elude grace. We say we are not worthy of grace. God says, you've got it anyway. So what is your habit? I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to be worthy. I'm not lovable. I don't accept myself. I'm not good enough. So bad that out of every person that's ever existed in thousands and thousands of years, I'm the only one that grace shouldn't be given to. What's the problem? The problem isn't finding an escape in drugs. The problem is that you're not willing to accept grace. Why?
Wow. It's real powerful.
Grace is an action word. It's not something that lives here. Grace is a doing word. And you know what the wonderful thing about grace is? You don't have to do anything but say, thank you.
Good gratitude. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Richard. And we have 2 questions, but I will start with Ida. If you can ask your question and unmute. Ida, are you still there? Okay. Blackie, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
I just wanted to find out. I'm sorry for that. I just wanted to find out what is the solution for overworking addiction?
It's a common one. What does overworking do for us? Because, we live in a society in South Africa specifically where we are all conditioned to say, your job is not secure. Jobs are hard to get. You are replaceable. The company can fall to pieces and you'll be fired, left on the side of the street. So let me work myself to death in order to prove that I'm worth keeping. Or I need to control my anxiety. I'm going to overwork to make sure that I'm always on top of my game. But you've got to ask yourself, how many people are looking at you and being like, wow, what a woman. She overworks. Give her a round of applause. Nobody's doing that. What your body is doing is, I am so overloaded with cortisol and adrenaline that I am sick. Do you know that out of the top 5 reasons or the top 5 statements that are given by, they've done surveys on this, in-depth research on people's deathbeds, what the first and most prevalent reason they would say that if they could relive their life, the first thing they would do is not overwork themselves. I would not have worked as much. The first thing people say. And people say that on their deathbeds because they have nothing left to lose. Clarity is like this. Pure. So overworking is a way to control anxiety. It's also a way that could come from childhood where you felt that if you performed excellently and well, that you felt safe in your home growing up. You weren't shouted at. Maybe you weren't praised, but you were left alone. And so you discovered, if I work and work and work, I feel safe. That is a misaligned belief. That is not true. And so the relationship you have with yourself, you've got to also realize that some things that we've come to believe are true are things that we actually once felt kept us safe. But that's when we were very young. We don't need those anymore. These are conversations we have with ourselves.
That seems like one of those internalized questions that we need to search within.
It's a negative core belief, and we all have them, and those revolve around safety and love. How do I feel loved? When I was younger, I know that I felt safe when I was obeying what I was told to do. And so when I grew up, I battled to be independent with my own voice because I needed somebody to tell me what to do. Otherwise, it was an unsafe world for me. And it's a very common thing. And we all share common things like that.
Yeah, we really do. It's part of the human experience after all. And we're going to accept 2 more questions, potentially 3, but let's see if time permits. Blackie, can you please unmute to ask your question?
Okay, my host. How are you, my host? Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh.
Okay, well, what I want to say is what now I see, Mr. Richard. Yeah, thank you very much. You are giving the most important education. But again, I do ask: is it possible, like, for you to what do you call it? How can I put it in words? For you to distribute this type of education to our kids at school there? Was like you stated something like self-awareness. A lot of things then in the early age, they do need something like this or something
I
like
agree.
what you are saying. Most of them are being bullied.
Oh yeah.
Most of them are being bullied. So with them being bullied, they lack a self-realization. So with that being said, please, if possible, just try to find a platform whereby you can distribute this education that you are giving us here.
So I would love to do that. I think what you've mentioned is probably the most important thing. And I have looked for opportunities, and I still do look for opportunities. I have spoken at many schools, but unfortunately, these conversations that we're having, a lot of schools don't want their students to have, because the parents complain, oh, who's this person talking to my child about how they're being raised or what they should or shouldn't do? Schools are very weird about that, but it is in my heart to educate the youth about this. So I do look for any opportunity. But it's wonderful that that is something that is on your heart too.
Please.
Thank you.
Please do find means to find that platform, or to find means to distribute this knowledge that you have. It is very, very important.
Absolutely.
Even myself, like, I see it very important. Like, I wish I could just take it and distribute it. I wish I could. Thank you, Chief.
Of course.
Thank you, the
anytime.
host. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for your question, Blackie. Can we please have the next person to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you very much, host, for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Richard, for such a rich information
Of course.
that you have given us. And today I'm just overwhelmed by the whole information. You know, you sometimes fall into this and think that probably maybe you are alone, but to find out that you're not alone in this. But my question is, to save time, I wanted to ask some habits. Is it like they are not triggered by trauma that causes us maybe to fall into it? That is my first question. And then my second one, does confession, maybe confessing that habit, maybe probably to your partner or to somebody, because you mentioned something like we do this in secret and thinking that you are not sin, but if you confess it, does it flee from you? Is it that easy?
You know, you speak of two very interesting things here. Trauma, absolutely. When we speak of trauma is so embodied into our nervous system that it is something that lives inside of us. So trauma constantly comes up, and how we deal with trauma is particularly why our habits form. So trauma that we have suffered from children, whatever it might be, are going to continually follow us in our lives. But we do have to learn a way when we recognize what the trauma is and say, okay, I have been living in a trauma body for so many years. I realized that the traumatic experience and the resulting behavior was not aligned. I am now old enough to look at the trauma and deal with it in a different way, have different conversations with the trauma. And some things are highly traumatic, I get that. But unless we start looking at trauma and having conversations with the trauma, and when I say conversations with the trauma, I'm talking about conversations with ourselves, saying, okay, I was a victim. I was taken advantage of, whatever it might be. But I am also willing to be compassionate about myself. I did not recognize, know, have the knowledge, have the ability to change X, Y, and Z. So I'm willing to now ask different questions about the trauma. However, that trauma is going to continually be triggered in our lives. But the more that we practice different ways or having different discussions with the trauma, the severity of the way that we want to react. Like for me, I still have stuff from my past triggering me. My reaction is no longer going to go and grab drugs. Your second question, confession, it is always a wonderful thing with trauma to have a conversation with a person that you trust, because something spoken, something shared lessens the burden. But it has to be somebody that you trust. And somebody, when I say that you trust, also, you know, very often people speak of trauma to people who don't know how to deal with traumatic situations, and they can give you some advice that sometimes is not very helpful. So you've got to choose wisely. Confession in another sense of the word, and I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, but I detected some of it. Confession to God, absolutely. But remember one thing. You ask God for help. You pray. You might want to ask him for forgiveness. In the Bible, God says to you, when you ask me for forgiveness, your sin is put as far as from the east as to the west. The two never meet again. It is gone. So do not allow the guilt, the shame, or the traumatic experience to steal the freedom that you have been given, because that is where the trauma seeps in again. That is deception. So yes, trust people if you can. If you want to ask for forgiveness, etc., do so, but accept the forgiveness, accept the grace.
Right. So, Richard, it's totally up to you if you're open to one more question.
I will be open
Otherwise,
to one more. We can do one more. My other meet starts. It starts at 7, so we've got 2 minutes. Let's go for it.
okay. Nompumelelo, you've got time for one question, just one, and if it can be as short as possible. Can you please unmute to ask your question? Seems like Nompumelelo is not there. Richard?
Yeah.
Do you mind taking over to ask a quick question?
You're asking me to ask a question?
Oh, no, there's a Richard here.
Oh, right.
Apologies.
No problem.
Okay, it seems like the first two.
I can hear somebody.
Yes. Yes, Richard.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Look, yes, sir, I'm the type of person that keeps bottle up anger and so forth.
Yes.
Sometimes I spend my, I don't realize how hard I'm doing it, and I'm going to work very angry. And this anger is my anger at work, anger in my personal life and stuff. I haven't exploded yet.
Sure.
Somebody else and beat somebody else
Sure.
up and so forth. Yeah, you can cool. Because me and you, all the riches got very dangerous. Yeah. So my before I explode on someone else, can I? What's the advice? Not to do so. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? When you were younger and when you were growing up, and I don't know, that's why I'm curious. Did you come from a background where you felt that you needed to defend yourself quite often or protect yourself quite often? Did you consider your environment a bit threatening?
No. I grew up in a
Sorry, I can hear another voice. I can't really hear your.
Drugs, how people.
I don't know who's talking at the back.
It's okay. I found them. They are disabled now. Please go on.
So sorry, Richard, you were saying you didn't come from a threatening background. You didn't experience anger as a child growing up.
Yes. But yeah, my father was the one always swearing in the house, looking for fight with my mom and so forth.
Okay.
Outside of that, yeah, it's good. It was good.
So you know what I'm hearing is you as a child observed your father's anger. Yes. And even though it was like my drug use, even though it was not a healthy thing to observe, you as a child learned how to behave by watching your parents, because when we are younger, we don't have any other behaviors to compare it to besides what we are taught.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned it, my father won't get drunk every day, come home and pick up fight. I see myself in that manner, because every month end that when I'm getting paid, that's the only time I'm drinking. Happening in my house as well.
And so it sounds like to me, as a young child, you watched your father, the man of the house, the man you were role modeling yourself against, not because you thought his behavior was correct, but that is what you observed, how it was done. A man was done. A wife or a husband ruled his house. And anger became a way that came second knowledge to you because you observed it, and it became imprinted in your nervous system. And when your father was triggered, he did whatever. He shouted, he drank, etc. And so now you're carrying this anger inside of you, and it can be for a lot of reasons. It could very well be at this stage of your life that you're not angry with people, but you're angry with yourself. It could be so many things. I mean, you and I could have a conversation for about 2 hours about this. So I also don't want to pinpoint and diagnose you, because I can't do that. But there are so many things. When anger is so embodied in a person that they can't get away from it, it is typically something that they have learned as a safety mechanism or a defense mechanism or a way to go about their life, and they've learned it from a young child. The encouraging thing is to recognize that and realize that that is something that you can look at and ask yourself, is that who I want to continue to be? Because there's no child that comes out of a womb that is an angry child. You don't find children who have been birthed and they're in cots in the hospital, and one child screaming at the other children. They just don't do that. Children learn anger. And so you learnt it. And in the same time, Richard, in this process, you need to have compassion for yourself, because what you learned as a child, you had no control over.
Yes.
And so you can't be angry with yourself and disappointed and trying to escape all of that stuff with alcohol, whatever it might be, because you didn't know any better. But the wonderful thing is you're starting to learn better now. And that's where change takes place.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Anger does not live in Richard. Richard is not anger. Anger is a small part of Richard that is just shouting loud enough. And when Richard looks at the anger and says, you no longer have a place here, the voice will get quieter and quieter and quieter.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you so much, Richard, for your
Sure.
question. We really hope that it may help you and others that listening that are human as well, just like you, so that may have, experienced what you've experienced. Richard, thank you so much for your patience, and everyone else in this call for your patience, for going over time. We are big on respecting people's time, so thank you so much for everyone's patience. And Richard, once again, thank you. And we will definitely call you back, because we receiving some lovely testimonials in the chats. But thank you once again.
As always, it's always such a pleasure to be on this forum, because there is such an honest desire from participants to learn. It's such a beautiful place to be. So guys, thank you. I'm very honored to have been called back, and I wish you